Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here. We're starting another new series for you called What's Your Question Wednesday. So if you have any training questions for us, go ahead and post them in the comments below, and me, Max, Marissa, or any of our other Juggernaut athletes who we think are best suited to answer that question for you will be answering those every Wednesday. So subscribe to the channel, check out this new series, check out the Jug Life podcast, our regular YouTube videos, as well as our other new series, Week in Review, in which myself and Max analyze the weekly training of our powerlifters and weightlifters. Thanks for watching. We're looking at exercise selection for sport performance. In the case of this question, specifically to the vertical jump, it's not that the hang power clean or power clean from the floor is necessarily better than the other. They all have their application, but time is the real consideration, with the hang power clean having a greater carryover as you get closer to the event. If I had to choose one exercise, I would probably choose a clean grip power snatch from the hang or from the floor as the most explosive, most extension requiring Olympic lifting variation. But when you're considering exercise selection for sport performance, you need to ask yourself three questions. Can the athlete safely perform the exercise? Do they have good technique? Can they create some sufficient output? So can they actually put some weight on the bar or put some velocity into an implement to get some sort of training stimulus? And finally, how does it fit into the context of a plan? High bar ass to grass squats might be good, but if an athlete has to do a lot of running, a box squat may be a better option at that time. When you're looking at the training of a master's lifter, whether powerlifting or weightlifting, of course the athlete's age needs to be taken into consideration, but more so you need to look at their training history. Because someone who's coming into a sport at 40 years old, who's just beginning the sport at 40 years old, is going to do training that looks much different than someone who is 40 years old and has been doing the sport for 20 years, or who has 20 years of diverse training experience. Like Marissa will turn 41 this year, has only been powerlifting for 5 or 6 years, but has been training, hard training since she was 17, and previously to that was a gymnast for 10 years. So that's going to have much different implications for someone of the same biological age who's only been maybe training for 2 years or is just beginning their career in whatever their sport of choice is. So look at what it means to be a beginner, look at the considerations that you need to make for a more advanced age. And Max and I have a pretty new episode of the Jug Life podcast about this called Masters Weightlifting Considerations. In regards to footwear in the squat, I squat in a heeled shoe even for low bar or high bar squatting, but more and more so now I'm encouraging lifters to squat in a flat shoe for low bar squatting. And this revelation kind of came about from Marissa because she felt like she was getting pitched forward in her heeled shoe, and her reaction to that was for her hips to rise early coming out of the hole. So I think if you have sufficient ankle mobility to hit depth and to maintain even pressure throughout the entire foot during the squat, I would suggest a flat shoe for the low bar squat, but very few people will have the necessary ankle movement to really load their quads properly in a high bar or front squat, so you're probably still going to want a heeled shoe for that.
The biggest challenge with doing the squat jerk as your competitive jerk is that the more skill, more balance, and more technical difficulty there is going to result in smaller margins for error. In the split jerk, you have the ability to move forward and backwards because one foot is in front of the other already. Your weight is distributed across both feet. This allows you to take a step forward, take a step backward very easily just by shifting your weight towards the direction the barbell is moving, if you happen to drive the bar out in front or behind. In the squat jerk, both of your feet are supporting the entirety of the weight of your barbell, so you're going to have a hard time moving those feet if you do need to go forward or back. That's the biggest issue with the squat jerk. You're also going to be required to have better balance because a smaller margin for error overhead is going to be a big problem there. This is the primary reason we prefer our lifters to do the split jerk during competition.
If you're planning on going an entire year of training without competing, is it necessary for you to still go through the phases of training, particularly the peaking block? And is it necessary? No, but I would probably recommend it for two reasons. One, it's going to allow you to see how you adapt and respond to peaking type of training. lower volume, very high intensity training. And so the more practice you have with that, the better you'll be able to design a peaking block when you actually are going to compete. Plus, it's going to give you some mental relief. Mental staleness can set in if you're just going hypertrophy, 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 strength, strength, hypertrophy, 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 strength, strength. So adding in that peaking block is going to allow for a little bit more fun. When you're getting ready for a big lift in competition, what should be going through your head? Ideally, nothing. If your training has properly prepared you, you should be in a state of unconscious competence, not having to think about what you're doing, but doing it as well as possible. Training is the time for thinking, competing is the time for doing. There's 4 stages of learning in regards to that. You have unconscious incompetence, not knowing how bad you are at it, conscious incompetence, knowing that you don't know what you're doing and having to think through every part of things and still messing up a lot of them, and conscious competence, you're able to think your way through every part of a movement, and finally unconscious competence. And that's going to be the pinnacle of performance, where you can go in, your technique is trained and just dialed in, and you're able to just get under the bar and go instead of thinking your way through it, which is going to slow everything down and create less power. In regards to doing body part specific deloads or varying length training cycles for different lifts, it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because there's going to be accumulated systemic fatigue and neural fatigue that happens from the heavy training. So even though your upper body may still feel good, you need to deload the lower body. Once in a while, I think that's a practical thing as you figure out what your MAV and MRV for the specific lifts. But you should definitely be working towards being able to have everything on a regular schedule, the same 3 up, 1 down, whatever it may be. But it is very possible that you stay in hypertrophy longer for the upper body while you move on to strength for the lower body, or stay in strength for the upper body while you move on to peaking for the squat and deadlift. With the new Juggernaut online coaching programs, we've had a lot of questions about which program is right for you. So here's a quick synopsis of our 3 different levels of coaching. First, club programming. Club programming is great if you're just looking to add some more structure, some expert design to your strength training for powerlifting or weightlifting, but probably not the best decision if you're looking to compete in one of the other sports, or if you have a specific competition date in mind, as just more general, continuous programming. Team programming is our favorite option. Team programming gives you programming tailored to your size, strength, gender, experience, and goals, control over the timing of the training relative to your competition, and access to our team of coaches for video review. One-on-one programming is going to be your best bet if you need very personalized attention based on a unique competition schedule, injury history, or if you're just looking to make sure that everything is built as specifically as possible to you. So we have 3 different levels of programming, and one of them is definitely going to be a great fit for you to help you improve in powerlifting or weightlifting.